Hello, and welcome to another episode of Disrupt Your Now, the show for entrepreneurs who are sick and tired of checking off the boxes and are ready to start creating their own boxes. Today, we have a guest, Elyse Archer, who is an international speaker and sales trainer and the founder of She Sells. Elyse was able to, through her own work, working on herself, turn her annual income into her monthly income in, is it 6 weeks,
It
Elise?
is 6 weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so welcome to the show, Elise. I'm so
Thank
happy to
you.
have you here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Lisa. And what you said about just being tired of checking the boxes, I was thinking about that even today. I mean, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole right
Yeah,
at the beginning. This is your show, but I'm so glad that we're talking about this because it's so easy to get into that habit, even after we've created our own businesses and not realize like we've created our own box again for ourselves, our own small box that we don't want
exactly.
to be in. So
Yeah.
I get
And
it. Yeah.
so I definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah.
That's one of my big pet peeves with clients. I'm like, it's your business and you can make it anything you want. So why
Mhm.
are you building a business that you're going to be just as miserable in as you were before? But
Yeah.
before we get into that, I want you to introduce yourself to the audience. Tell them more about your background and how you got
Sure.
to where you are, and then we'll just roll with it.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Well, again, the theme of the show resonates a lot for me because I spent so much of my life checking the boxes, doing all the things I thought I was supposed to do
Mhm.
to be successful. So when I got out of college, I went into corporate sales, and an embarrassing slash not widely known fact about me is my first sales job was in the yellow pages. So
Oh,
some of your some of your listeners will know what that is and not want to admit it. A lot of them may not know what it
oh, I
is, but
definitely know. Yeah.
I did graduate to, I'd say, like sexier things to sell from
Mhm.
there, but that was my first corporate sales job, and then I went into media and advertising sales and digital media, and I
Mhm.
did quite well, and I was consistently, I'd say, top of the leaderboard or towards the top of the leaderboard, and I found myself in my mid 20s having kind of pursued everything I thought that was going to make me happy and quote unquote successful.
Yes.
And I had, again, I was doing well at work. I had a nice house, a nice car, was married. But what I wasn't telling anyone was it looked like I had it all together on the outside. On the inside, I was struggling so much with anxiety, a lot of anxiety about money too. I had a lot of what I now know were limiting beliefs about money, but
Mhm.
fears that it wouldn't come back or that customers wouldn't close. Or I was like, I had money, but I was always afraid it was going to go away. So struggling with that. Panic attacks, eating disorder. The marriage was actually really unhealthy, but I wasn't telling anybody. And so, yeah, found myself at this kind of this life I'd created. And I looked around and I was like, I did check all the boxes, I did all the things, and yet I don't feel like myself. It was like I had lost my center. I didn't even know who I was anymore. And the number 28 has always been special to me. I was born on the 28th, and I remember it was right before my 28th birthday. And I was looking around at this life and career I had built that I didn't like and thinking, I want to walk away from all of this. But it felt terrifying. I
Yeah.
was so terrified of the judgment that would come from getting a divorce in my 20s. I had a lot of hangups about that, even though quite a few people do it. It's not a big deal. I had a lot of fear around, I felt called to leave the corporate job and go out and start my own business, but fear of, can I make it work? Will I have
Yeah.
clients? All of those normal thoughts we have. But there's this beautiful, I don't know if it's pronounced aniasnin or aniasnin, this quote that says, the day came when the risk to remain tight in the in the bud became greater than the risk it took to blossom.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I don't
so
think I've ever heard that. I love that.
oh, it's so powerful. Yeah, my mom put it in her email signature years ago, and I was like, that's exactly
Mhm.
what happened in my life. And I said, it's really scary to walk away from all of this and start
Yeah.
fresh, but I'm not available to live this 128th year of my life in as much pain and misery and suffering as I've been in.
Mhm.
And it's more painful to stay here than to see what's on the other side. So I went on a 6 month process of unraveling everything, left the marriage, left the corporate job. I knew I wanted to go into sales coaching. I'd been making six figures in corporate. as an entrepreneur, I had one client who had paid me $300 to review a sales presentation for him. And I was like, it's proof of concept. Best $300 I ever made, which I'm sure you know,
Mhm.
and your listeners know listening, like the first client, it doesn't matter how much it is. It's just so exciting.
Yeah.
And I was motivated. I was like, I got to get out and, and do my own thing.
Mhm.
So I left the corporate job and I went on really a path of self discovery, quite an entrepreneurial path, building and launching a sales coaching business, which we can speak more to if you like I said, left the marriage 6 months to the day that I made that decision to leave. I met someone at a networking event who I was not looking to meet anyone for
That's
sure, but
always when you meet
it's
somebody.
always how it
Yeah.
goes, right? I was like, I'm done. I don't want to be in this world for a while, but I met someone who within 5 minutes of talking to him, Lisa, I knew he was the one, and we are now married and have two beautiful young
Oh,
boys. And I've built a career and a life that I really, really love. So I'm just passionate about empowering. We work with a lot of women. We also, I want to give a shout out to all the men listening, because we have so many men who are like, I listen to She Sells Radio, but I don't tell anyone because
yeah.
I don't know if it's okay.
Your
So
little secret.
yeah, exactly. So what I do a lot of and what we do a lot of as a team now is empower women to learn how to sell in a way that's authentic to them. And then my specialty and my heart is helping them break through the 6 and the 7 figure income mark. We are launching another brand that's not female exclusive later this year / early next year, because a lot of these principles apply regardless of your
Oh,
your
sure.
gender.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's a bit of the background, and you take it wherever you want to go from there.
Well, I just love your story, and I love that you were able to take that pain and turn it into this beautiful story. And I'm going to make myself
Mm,
cry. My friends know, Lisa cries all the time, but I
yeah.
just love it. And you're such a lesson to my followers, because I'm always telling them, the people that you think are so successful, the people that you idolize, so many of them are secretly miserable, and you have
Mm,
no idea that they are, but you are trying to model yourself after them. And so not only are they not happy, but you're modeling yourself in a way that isn't authentic to yourself. So
mm.
the fact that you learned that at such a young age, at least, you were so lucky, because
Mm.
there are people decades and decades older than you who still haven't learned it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I completely agree. And I think part of what's so powerful about what you said, Lisa, and this is something I tell my clients too, like when you're looking for a coach or a mentor, and that can be someone you pay, or it can be someone maybe you're
Mhm.
just following online right now. You don't want to just look at their results. Like you do want to look at their results, and that's
Yeah,
important, but you also want to look at their life and be
right.
like, are they happy? Now, to your point, sometimes you would think they are and they're not. And we hear
Mhm.
stories of what happens then and people taking their lives and all of those things.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not just about, can I go make $1 million? It's, to
Right.
me, success is happiness.
Mhm.
And I'm not perfect with it, but it's something I strive for every day and remind myself of every day. Like, this is the actual success. Was I happy today?
That's right.
You know?
Everything should be viewed through that lens. Is this getting me closer to the life I want to live, the holistic life,
Yeah.
not just the money? Because what people don't think about, they see the money and they see the glamour, but they don't stop and think, what do I want my day-to-day life to be like? Would I
Mm,
want to travel the world? Would I want to do this, do that? So even if you're able to duplicate that success and make that money, if you're not following what's in your heart and what you would like your life to be like, it doesn't matter how much money you have, you'll be miserable.
yeah. It's so true. It's so, so true. And money is important, right? And this is something
Oh,
that
yeah.
I found unlocks a lot of things in our community, is when we can shift our relationship with money. So I love talking about the energy of money and
Mhm.
shifting relationship with that. And if we, like, I used to look at it as validation. I would say, if I can just be at the top of the leaderboard, I'll be good enough. Or if I can just make this amount of money, I'll be good enough. Then I'll feel worthy. Then I'll feel validated. And what I found, because you spoke a bit earlier to the quantum leap I had in my income, was um, it it only came, way more money only came when I actually started feeling worthy and validated and
Yeah.
whole outside of the money, because money will always just mirror back how worthy and validated you feel you are. It's always just a mirror. It's just a reflection. So I think it's so important to remember that, especially for us as entrepreneurs, where a lot of it is tied to the money.
That's so true. And I've heard you
Yeah.
say before, I actually watched the replay of your webinar from a couple weeks ago, and you were
Mm.
talking about every time you would hit almost that mark, you would basically self-sabotage. A lot of
Uh-huh.
people do that. It's like because you think this is where I belong. And it's scary to think once you hit what you think is the point, what's after that? So
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting that you did that, but so many people do that. So talk about that a bit more about the relationship with money, because I think a lot of people don't even realize that they have that subliminal problem going on.
There's so much. Oh my gosh. How much time do we have? It's interesting because I used to, when I was staying stuck at the same level financially, and so people will hear, oh, turn annual income into monthly income in 6 weeks. Yes. And that came after a decade of being stuck and spinning at the same level, no matter what I did. And I was investing a lot of money, Lisa, into coaching and training and strategy, and like tens of thousands of dollars was going into just trying to get the right strategy. And I was like,
Yeah.
why can I, first in sales, then as an entrepreneur, I would always make right around 6 figures. And it was just
Mhm.
no matter what I did, that. And
Yeah.
what I didn't know was that was what I was actually programmed to make. That was my financial frequency.
Mhm.
So no matter what strategy I laid on top of it, I would always make the same amount of money. So part of what really led to the allowing in of way more money and the big financial quantum leap I had was learning that what was holding me back from making more money wasn't that I needed another strategy. It was actually there was a requirement to rewire my relationship with money, which really has to do with our relationship with worthiness and how much we're
Mhm.
willing to receive and how worthy we feel we are of what we want.
Yeah.
And so I worked with mentors over the years on this, and I love studying now the energy of money and how it impacts our results, because so many entrepreneurs don't realize that the thing that's holding them back from the
Mhm.
money they want to make, again, it's like strategy is important, but that's maybe 3 to 5% of it. The rest of it is mindset and your belief systems about who you are, how much you allow in, etc. So I love helping them get under the hood and see that the actual thing that will quantum leap your income is shifting your relationship with money. Um, there's a lot of different dynamics to it, Lisa, but I'll share one thing that I think is really, it was very empowering for me to learn. I learned it from a mentor years ago, and I was just talking with a client about it last week. If someone is listening and they feel like they're struggling to make the amount they want, and they
Mhm.
keep maybe making the same amount of money in their business no matter what they do, um, I would invite them to consider it's not actually about the money. Okay, we have to get under the hood and look beneath what's going on. One of the biggest factors that changed things for me was learning that the way that we related to our parents growing up
Yeah.
will determine the way we relate to money later on in life. And so if you kind of stick with me here and follow the parallels. So growing up, whoever your primary caregivers were, that represented security and safety to the extent that it did or it didn't.
Mhm.
We have a lot of members of our community who came from, whether it's an unstable household, an alcoholic household. And I firmly believe, especially as a parent now who makes mistakes all the time, like our parents were doing the best they could with what they
Right.
had. And that's
Exactly. That's
normal.
what
So
I feel. Yes.
yeah. So it's not about throwing anyone under the bus. It's just an
Right.
awareness, right? It's just an awareness.
Yeah.
So m- many of the women that I work with and men that I work with now too learned that in order to receive safety and security and love, they had to show up in a certain way, whether they had to be performative, they had to be perfect, or no matter what they did, it wasn't enough. They felt like they were on edge. They were always kind of bracing, like, oh, like, I feel like I'm okay now, but is the love going to go away? Or is my parent going to go
Yeah.
away? Or whatever. And so later on in life, as adults, we don't realize that subconsciously we relate those same dynamics that we felt like we had to show up in as kids to be safe and receive love to money. And
Mhm.
so someone maybe felt like they had to be perfect to receive love and safety growing up. Now, as an adult, money is considered safety and security, although I would encourage someone to not make it your true safety and security. But they wonder, why do I feel like I'm so scared of making a mistake in my business, or why do I feel like I've got to be so perfect with money? And oh my gosh, if I mess something up, it's all going to fall apart. It's that
Yeah.
same dynamic from when you were a little kid that you're now relating to money. So
Hmm.
when we separate the two and decide that you can create a new, different type of relationship with money. And I love Jen Sincero's You're a Badass at Making Money. I think she's got some good exercises in there for this. But we start to talk to money and relate to money as a separate entity. And if you wanted a relationship with someone in your life that was loving and supportive and empowering and where they were there and present for you, how would you relate to them? And what would your energy be with them? And we actually start to form a relationship with money that's
Hmm.
different. And and we start to feel worthy of what we want, because one of the biggest things I've learned is your level of income will never exceed your level of self-worth. So if you want to create more income, more revenue in your business, you've got to step up your level of worthiness and
Yeah.
availability to receive it. And for those listening who are women too, who have had maybe sexual trauma, a lot of us have had some, we've learned that it's not safe to receive in
Hmm.
some way, shape, or form. Maybe it was sexual trauma. Maybe it was we spoke up and we were shut down. And so we hold back and we actually block ourselves energetically from receiving. So there's a lot of under the hood type of work that I found creates the biggest quantum leaps in money and in business and revenue, that we don't realize that's actually the thing that's going to get us the lift to where we want to go.
Yeah. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you personally, um, uh, first of all, I agree with everything you're saying. It's so true. And it's so important for us to try to take that step back and look at ourselves and try to figure out what's going on. And over the years, one of the things I realized with myself, I mean, I grew up, we didn't have very much. I found it when I was in college, we were poverty level. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew we didn't
Mm,
have much, but that label, you put that label on. But around that same time, there was somebody who was very important to me. They were not in my family, but somebody who was very important to me that would say things like, "Oh, you're gonna forget where you came from.
mm,
How people say, get above your raisings and act like, because some people do, they get so snooty and then they're like ashamed of where they came from and they don't want to associate. And that person was afraid of that. But I heard it so much. And me being a middle child, always wanting to please everybody, I realized
mm.
after years, I was like, that really affected me because I didn't want people to feel like I thought I was better than them. So therefore, subconsciously, one of the ways to not do that is to not make a whole lot more money.
Yeah, it's such a powerful awareness, isn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is so important. It's that what's the subconscious belief system? Because again, that drives 95 to 98% of our results. So if there's a belief that, oh, if I make too much, then I won't be loved, right? Which is
Yeah.
really that kind of that bottom
Hmm.
line belief, which a lot of people have and they don't realize. Um, One the beautiful thing though is once we identify it, we can shift it and say, is it true? Is it actually, because no limiting belief is ever true. Is it true that everyone who makes a certain amount of money doesn't have any love in their life? No,
Right.
right? So we've got to
Because
question everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because then you're like, well, no, I don't have to forget. I don't have to be above my raisings. I can make more and give back more to help people. There's always that way you can take the one way that you're looking at something and shift it and look at it from the other angle, and you get
Yeah.
a totally different picture. So
Yeah.
you were studying all this stuff, reading stuff, and you had mentors who helped you get over that hurdle with your relationship with
Mhm.
money. So that you would say that's, I know there's many, many things that go into it. That's the key to your success, that if you hadn't had that, probably the other things that you did wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, I'd say it's a number of things, but I would say the number one thing, Lisa, and it's so fun because we just had an event the other week called Seven Figure Self Image, because it
Mhm.
really was learning to create the self image of someone who had the results that I wanted. Um, and this is why
Yes,
I
that was the webinar that I didn't get to watch it live because we had stuff
yeah,
going on, but I did
yeah,
watch the replay, and it was
awesome.
really good. I'm going to go back and watch the replay again. So it was really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, yeah, you were registered for that. Beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, your self image is everything. It
Mhm.
is everything. Our self concept is everything. And so when my first son was actually 4 months old when I made a decision to change everything. Well, I've made many decisions to change a lot of things in my life, but this is after the first one when I turned 28. It was later on down the road. Actually, I think I was 35. And my first son was 4 months old, and I was reading Bronnie Ware's Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, which is a phenomenal book. Have you read it?
Yes, I have. It's
Yeah,
really good.
yeah. And I just remember sitting and reflecting on my life and realizing that I had created a life that I think was good, and I'd made a lot of progress from that day when I turned 28 and decided to leave all the crap behind. But I'd gone on to create a life that was good, but not like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of this. I am gonna, like, if I died tomorrow, I'd be so proud of what I'd done. And I realized there were so many places where I was still playing small, and so many places where I was saying to my visions and dreams and goals, whether it was having enough money to retire my husband from his job so he could study for medical school,
Mhm.
or expanding my company's influence dramatically, or being a philanthropist in the world, or creating better lifestyle for us and our family. I was still stuck in that loop of earning six figures, even with it was still a successful sales coaching business, but I had a much greater desire and impact and calling on my life than I was allowing in. And I
Mhm.
just made the decision in that moment. I remember I was sitting in the chair in my son's room, and it was the chair I nursed him in. And I was reading this book late night. And I just remember realizing like I was waiting for someone else to come give me permission
Yeah.
that I was good enough
Yeah.
and that it was time. And that was part of my self concept, was that I had to get permission from somebody else. And I realized that. And I said, I don't care what it takes. I am going to shift this, because if I was to die tomorrow, not that I intend on it, but I would want to say that I played full out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still a lot of things I wanted to do that were way bigger than I was doing in my life at that point. And I said, God, spirit, universe, bring me the resources, the people, the ideas. I'm going to do what it takes to actually step into the fullness of who I am and who I'm meant to be on this planet. And the very next day, I hear an ad on the podcast of a woman who I followed loosely. I didn't really like follow very closely, but her specialty was helping moms become millionaires. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I want to do. And it was just like, she mentioned she had an opening for a private coaching client. So I was like, oh, okay, fine, universe, I'll bite.
Mm-hmm.
And filled out the coaching application to hop on a call with her. And it's like, yes, yes, yes. This is perfectly aligned. And then I find out that the investment to work with her for 6 months was $50,000.
Yeah.
And now I had made 100 the year before. I was the
Mm-hmm.
breadwinner for our family, and I hadn't been putting money aside for coaching. But there was something in me that knew that if I could just learn how she thought, because this was a young mom, um, multimillionaire, younger than me. I was like, there's something different in her self concept and her
Yeah.
self image. If I can learn that and be in that energy, I think I could shift that for myself too.
Mm-hmm.
So when something is a must, we always find a way. And it was a
That's right.
must for me to do this. And so I was like, I'm going to move some money around. I'm going to put a deposit on a credit card, and I'm going to figure it out from there. I didn't even know how I was going to pay for the whole thing. But in the in the process of saying yes to myself and yes to learning how to shift my self concept to be someone who is even worthy of investing in herself at that amount, I
Uh-huh.
think that started a cascade of very fast changes in my life. And that's when that turning annual income into monthly income in 6 weeks happened. Because from there, I learned how to think differently. I learned how to create a new self concept and self image of a woman who could have a young child and still have
Mm-hmm.
$1 million business and have the level of success and impact I wanted. Um, so it was really the self image. It was really
Yeah.
learning to step into a totally different self image of a woman who was unapologetic about what she wanted, of a woman who was worthy of that amount, of a woman who was creating impact and not afraid to lead and step up and be visible in the way that's required at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And since then I've gone on to manifest and create a lot of the things that before had just felt like a dream life far off. But that's really it, is the self-image and self-concept that we hold. It's a long answer to that question, but that's
No, it was great.
that's what it
It's
is.
like it's like you flip the light switch and you could see things differently. You still had to work, you still had to do,
100%.
but you were able to look through different lenses and look at things a different way.